Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com, bringing you the second day of the third week of the Darkhorse training program written by Brian Alsruhe. As usual, I'll leave links below for the explanation video as well as the spreadsheet video, so you can follow along at home and do the program yourself if you would like. So day 2 is upper body pulling and pushing, like usual. So to start off with, we did some conditioning. I just did some rowing for a minute, 5 burpees and 4 chin-ups. We just did that for 5 rounds to get the blood flowing. Again, the way I like to do conditioning is to do a really short, under 10 minutes. This probably took around 9 minutes, 8 minutes just to get those 5 rounds in. But you do a general warm-up, so I like rowing mainly because it is the only machine I have here for cardio. If you don't have that, biking, running, jumps, literally anything, tired, sled drags, anything you want just to get some general conditioning, get the heart rate going, get the blood rate, get the breath rate up, just so you get the body warmed up a little bit, depending on how cold it is outside. And then the secondary and third movements will just be something that uses the body parts that I'll be working for today. So today being upper body pushing and pulling, I just did some burpees to mix it up. I could do push-ups as well and some chin-ups. You could do pull-ups, you could do rows, you could do kettlebell swings, things like that. Otherwise, if you're doing lower body, think of jumping, walking lunges, tire sled drags, a little heavier weight, things of that nature. But you really want to minimize, no rest periods, obviously. You're just going to repeat the conditioning until it's done. I like to pick 5 rounds just because it's a nice number, but you could do as many rounds or as little as you want, or do it for a time mark. So 10 minutes is a great way to do it as well. Nevertheless, after that, we move on to the warm-up for the main movement. So today's main movements are pendlay rows and bench press. This bench press is medium grip, as opposed to a close grip or a wide style competition grip. I found personally that the wide grip has caused some issues with my shoulder joints, and I'm not really happy with the way that feels, so I've switched over to a medium grip. The close grip doesn't seem to bother my shoulders as much either, so I could go between either the close grip or the middle grip. Basically, the close grip would be my index fingers just outside of the smooth part of the barbell, and my medium grip is a thumb width away. So imagine that's the smooth part of the barbell is right at the tip of my thumb, and I'm just grabbing that far away. The wide grip obviously probably be a pinky or a ring finger on the power ring on the outside of the barbell. So that's kind of the grip width I'm talking about. But in general, the medium width grip will probably just be just slightly wider than shoulder width, depending on your build and your body structure. But personally, I found anything from the middle grip inwards hasn't caused any shoulder pain, so I've just been going with that just because it feels nice and it's increasing that longevity in my ability to bench press for longer. If I had dumbbells, I would probably switch over to dumbbell bench pressing rather than barbell bench pressing, but given the equipment restraints I have, we're sticking with the barbell bench press, but we're just altering that grip to alleviate any pain and pain issues that I'm experiencing. But today's was for the warm-ups. We just start off with a nice, always the empty barbell. I do about 15 to 10 reps. And then we just ramp up from there. So 135, 155, 185, 200. Today's first opening set for the max effort for the pendlay row was 185 pounds for sets of 12 reps. That was straight across, so 185 all the way through. But for the bench press, we do ramp up. I do like to ramp up over the course of the set. So we had 4 sets today, 225, followed by 245, 255, and 265. All with 5 reps, so that felt really good. I think if we're going to compare it to previous weeks, the opening week, so if we're going to compare weeks to each other, just try and get a gauge of how I'm going so far with the program. Opening week, week 1, we did 275 pounds for a single for the medium grip bench press, and then week 2, we got 245 for a heavy triple, and now we're doing 265 for 5. So I think we're doing really well. We're getting some progress there. I think yes, it is hard to compare rep ranges across because we're kind of comparing apples to oranges. But with that being said, being able to handle 10 pounds lighter off of a single for 5 reps, I think I could argue that there is some strength development there, especially when we have also increased from 245. We did a 20-pound increase, but we did two reps more than last week. So I think overall, I would argue that my bench press strength is increasing, or I was sandbagging the last 2 weeks. In any case, I'll take it as a good win for the first phase of this program. As you know, week 4 is a rest week, which means that I won't be performing the bench press in this regard. So I think it's a great way to end this first phase of the training cycle with a 265 5-rep max. I think that's probably a new 5-rep max for myself. And then and again, no shoulder pain, which I think is great. All of this has been ramping up. We've been increasing the weights, changing around with the reps. All I've changed is a grip width. We've gone from wide grip to medium-sized grip, and I think that's a great compromise there. Not especially since I won't be really competing in a powerlifting style competition where that wide grip is probably a little bit more necessary because we're decreasing that range of motion. So again, look at your end goal in mind. If you're not competing, pick the movement pattern that fits your body structure the best, whether that be wide grip, middle grip, close grip. Just say you're experiencing pain with middle grip and out, maybe a close grip doesn't aggravate your shoulder issues, then by all means do the close grip bench press, because that'll mean you're able to train for longer with being pain-free. And at the end of the day, that's really what counts, in being able to train consistently without any pain or injury. Obviously is our ideal scenario there. So because we're not competing, we're not looking to get those competition advantages with the leverages and range of motion. We're just trying to stimulate the muscle growth and move as much weight as possible with great form and no injuries and no pain. This is a great compromise. That middle grip, it's perfect. We're doing everything else that we need to: leg drive, tucking the shoulder blades, all that good stuff with the form. So I think look at that for yourself. Look at how you structure your own movement pattern and pick the ones that obviously are pain-free, because if you don't need to do them, don't do them. But for the rest of the max effort work, we did hit that pendlay row, 185 pounds for sets across. Again, that is probably a good 12-rep max for me. It did felt tough. I did have to take some breaks towards the last half of the sets and the last half of each of those sets. So pausing at like 7th rep and then 10th rep just to bust out that full 12 rep, complete it. The prescription for today would have been 12 to 15 reps. So I could have possibly dropped down the weight to maybe 175 and busted out maybe a couple of extra reps. But I did want to push the weight a little bit, considering it is the final week of the first phase. So wanting to just push out a little bit more weight than usual, which I think was great. We hit that 12, again, beltless, because I find personally the belt with the rows hinders that range of motion, because I am tapping the belt at the top, because I do like to touch my stomach at the top of every row, whether that be a floating barbell row or a pendlay row. That's just how I know I'm getting that complete range of motion. It allows me to measure between weights so that we are having a somewhat of an arbitrary mark that we can gauge distance moved. If you need to use a belt, use a belt. If you were to use one, I would probably recommend getting probably the nylon belt. I mean, not really a big fan of the nylon belts in general, but it is one of the thinnest belts you can get. If you do use one with one of the big belt buckles, obviously you're going to run into the same issues that I do, where you're hitting the belt each and every rep. We follow this up with some V-ups. Again, drop the reps down a little bit. So I think we did 12 last week, so now we're doing 10s, just because I'm just feeling a little bit more fatigued after the first 2 movements there. And then I'm wrapping up again with some sandbag slams, 5 reps for the 4 sets. These are feeling good, still moving quite nicely, moving explosively. They're getting slightly easier each and every week, which is great. So then we move on to volume work for the day, which was 3 sets. We dropped down. Normally the assistance movement, so the pendlay row, doesn't drop down in weight, but I was feeling quite fatigued today, which meant that we dropped it by 20 pounds so I could hit that 12 reps, which meant 165 pounds for sets of 12, but we did hit 12 reps for 3 sets, so I'm happy with that. We dropped the bench press down to 210 pounds. We got probably a rep PR with 12 reps, but I think that came with the cost of the subsequent volume sets. I was only able to hit 9 reps for each set. The goal was to hit 10 reps for the volume, but we did drop two reps out of each set there. So realistically, we did 10 reps for all 3 sets if we average it out, 30 reps total for today. But I do like that I was able to squeeze out that 12 reps for the AMRAP, which I think was probably more important than driving the extra set reps on the subsequent sets there. Still happy with that effort. The reason I did want to drop the last rep, I just didn't feel safe. I didn't feel confident in my ability to lift the weight. Potentially, if there was a spotter here, I would have probably been able to squeeze out that last rep, but I just didn't want to take that chance and play around with the safety here just because I am lifting alone. I do have the safety spotters, I do have the safety bars in place, but I still like to prefer to not fail on a bench press when I don't have to. And then finally wrapping up with the dynamic effort movement for today, which was overhead press with some bands. I think I caught it on video. The prescribed weight for today was 125 pounds with the bands, and that just wasn't happening. I tried to do it and it just felt super heavy. I think the fatigue is kicking in, especially because we did drive up a lot of the weights on earlier in the day session. So we did hit that new 5 rep max. We hit the new AMRAP. So I think I am just driving some fatigue. The arms are just tired. Everything's just tired. I didn't feel that great leading into the workout. So a little bit of lack of sleep and probably poor nutritional choices in the last couple of days. Nevertheless, the 125 didn't fly, so I dropped that down to 95 pounds. And that was pushing the weight limit for today. We did hit every minute on the minute, so at least that part of the workout went well as well. We didn't have to extend out those rest periods. This was a decrease from last week's EMOM for the overhead press. Last week we did hit 115 pounds, but I was feeling quite fatigued today, so I think dropping that weight and really being able to get the volume that we needed for today whilst trying to keep relatively good form and keep that speed up, I think was probably more important than putting that weight on the bar. So again, with your own training program, look at day-to-day variances. Don't just stick to the program if you're not feeling up for it. As much as I don't want to recommend like sandbagging workouts, I do want to say that you should always put as much effort as you healthily can put out. If you listen to your body at the end of the day, don't just follow what's written down on paper. If I was to push 125, I would have had a lot of form breakdown. I don't think the workout would have been as productive as it was today because it is dynamic effort and we want to focus on the speed of the barbell rather than the weight on the barbell, because otherwise we're just doing volume work. There's a fine line between volume work and dynamic effort. We do want to make sure that that speed is still driving up. We don't want to let the bar speed slow down, because then it's not dynamic effort, as I said before. Wrapping up the second day, I think progress is going along just nicely with all the factors being considered there. I think we're doing productive work here from the program. I think the program is driving up some really good gains and really good productivity in my abilities to output strength, as well as to keep the workouts relatively short within the same time frame. I have expanded out the workouts to probably 5-10 minutes over what it was in the first week, but I have instituted using my Google Home to act as a timer each and every time I do a set, which I think is super helpful rather than having a wall timer, which are quite expensive, and now I can just tell the machine in the cloud to set a timer for me, which I think is super helpful for me when I'm just out of breath and tired. But 2 more days to go for the first phase, and I think it's going really well. Okay, so we've wrapped up day 2. Now I just wanted to go into my second part of this week's understanding of what's going on behind the structure of the Darkhorse program. Yesterday day 1, we talked about the conjugate style of training as a whole, and I do want to address today, which is maximum effort work, which is one of the big key components, and the second component that I'll be addressing this week. So basically, maximum effort work is kind of in the name. You're putting out maximum effort for that set, for that day, which entails putting up, this is where your heavy sets come in. So think of maximum effort as your heavy section of the conjugate program. So each and every day we're doing maximum effort for a certain movement. So because the program is based on the 4 main movements, each and every day we're doing maximum effort for a squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press variety. The way that Alsruhe is programmed is that we're not doing the competition style movements that way. We're doing an accessory movement that complements the main movement. So for example, we're doing box squats with the SS yoke bar, follow that with medium bench press medium grip bench press, we're doing sumo deadlifts, and we're doing push presses. So all very close in nature to the typical competition style lifts, but all different so that we're training different joints and ligaments along the way. That way we're not overusing the joints and the muscles in that area to try of mitigate some of that overuse injuries and mitigate the stress that we have, especially if we're doing the competition style movements for dynamic effort. So because we're trying to play around again with this conjugate style training, we're doing a lot of things, or a lot of gears in motion here. We're mitigating some of that stress by changing the movement and adding that accessory movement in there. Now you could, if you wanted to, I think, switch it over so you do your dynamic effort with your accessory movement and your heavy movement with your main competition style lift is another way to do it, but that's just not how we've programmed it today. Just another tool in the toolbox, as it were. So as obviously as the name suggests, the weight feels more difficult as you do more sets, hence you're putting maximum effort into each and every set. So you can do sets across, or I like to do increasing weights, kind of a pyramid effect, so that we can hit that top heavy set. Ideally, you're operating at least with the last 3 working sets that you do. You want to stay in and above 85%, ideally 90% of your max. That way you're really operating in that heavy nature. Now that's obviously going to be dependent on whether you're doing a single, a triple, or a 5. But again, with that being said, you always want to be within that 85. You want to be in that upper echelon. You really want to have that last rep, whether that be the first, the third, or the fifth, be close to an RPE 9, close to an RPE 9.5. And you want that to be for the last 3 sets. That's where this complexity for this programming starts happening. There are little factors along the way. So if you're doing 6 working sets with maximum effort, the first 3 probably going to be above 70%, the last 3 are going to be above 85%. This way, that's where we're driving the gains from, because if we're not pushing ourselves for that last 3, and the last 3 is probably an arbitrary number, but that was what was developed by Louis Simmons at Westside. So that's kind of where we're basing this structure on. That last 3 sets, whether that be for however many reps, are really going to be your really hard working sets, your maximum effort sets there. And that's where we're going to drive those grind. We're going to train in how to grind through a heavy set, how to grind through a heavy rep, how to push that weight, how to drive through heavy sets of 5s for those multiple sets there. That way it elicits a bit more of a training response than doing a single set at above 90%. We really want to do 3 sets above 85. That way we're getting that volume, getting that tonnage, getting that training exposure that we want to, and still mitigating some of that stress. Now, as you get more advanced, you're going to learn your body, you're going to learn how this works, and you'll figure out what feels right for the last 3 sets and what doesn't feel right, and that's going to just taper down, because as you get more advanced, the weights are going to have to get a bit more precise in there in picking the weights, because it's going to be a big difference between 650 pounds and 620 pounds. Is much bigger stress on the body than the difference between 350 and 320. Yeah, it's the same 30-pound difference, but we're scaling so differently. Because of the way the structure of the programming is done, we are following the Westside recommendation of doing maximum effort work for 3-week stints. So we want to have 3 weeks of hard, heavy work and then a deload week. Rather than 4 weeks and then a deload week, we're doing 3 and then an off week. That way, we're really mitigating that stress because we are pushing the body. So why do we want to do maximum effort work? We want to do maximum effort work because it teaches us how to handle heavy weights. If we stick with hypertrophy sets, so if we stick to rep ranges in the 8 to 12 range, we're going to learn how to drive weights for a longer amount of time. We're not going to have experience and training exposure to heavy weights, and that's whether that be 1, 3, or 5, or one rep through 5 reps should really be very typically heavy weights, because as we drive down the reps, we want to drive up the weights. I'm not going to do, if I can do 100 pounds for 12 reps, I'm not going to do 100 pounds for 5 reps. Obviously, we're going to drive up that weight to whatever it is that we can just hit 5 reps for, maybe 6 reps. So we're going to obviously stick within that RPE range of 8 to 10, but we're going to force our body to do a lot more work, and that's where this max effort comes in, because we're training we're training the body to handle these heavier weights for a sustained amount of time. If you're wanting to gain strength and even build muscle size, we're only going to build muscle size when we get stronger. And we're only getting stronger when we build muscle size. So we're not doing one or the other. We always need to look at how we attack a program from a holistic standpoint. So we're not trying to just do hypertrophy. We're not just trying to do strength. We're trying to build all of these factors all at once so that we have a holistic growth of us as an athlete. And by ignoring strength work and by ignoring maximum effort work, you're kind of trying to build your body with a hand tied behind your back because you're not accessing that ability to grind heavy weights. And that's not only is that good for you physically, but it's good for you mentally. One thing that is really difficult to train, and I've experienced this before in the past, is grinding through a heavy single. Pushing a maximum weight for one time is way different to pushing a weight that you can handle for 12 reps. Even though both would be RPE 10, the ability for you to execute a heavy single is very different to a heavy 12 or a heavy 10, even a heavy double, because you're trying to put out all of your energy into one rep, which might take 6 seconds, 10 seconds maximum. Otherwise, you're probably going to pass out after that 10 seconds. But it teaches you how to grind through the really difficult nature of a heavy single. You can't rest at the top because once you hit the top, that's it. You're either completing the rep or you're failing the rep, and that's all there is to it. So it teaches you mentally how to break through and continue to work when there's no let up. And I think that's a huge lesson for life, because life's going to happen and you're not going to be able to have a break sometimes. You're going to have to keep pushing, and the weight's just going to feel heavier. It's going to get heavier. It's going to just put you under stress. You're not going to be able to breathe. You're not going to be able to rest. You're not going to be able to regroup. You're just going to have to keep pushing and grinding and struggling until you're able to stand up and pick that weight up. And that's what you're going to learn from doing maximum effort work, especially true with heavy singles. Heavy fives, you do get that rest in between, but heavy singles are really a huge lesson for training and life, I believe, because when you can learn to grind through that weight and you're able to stand up no matter what, then remember that when life gets you down, because that skill that you developed in the gym is going to push you so much further in life. Because when it feels like you're going to drown and you've pushed through a weight that you thought you've never done before, when you're setting PRs for heavy singles, you're literally doing things you've never done in your life. And when you understand that concept that you can achieve things that you haven't done before with training, practice, getting everything else right, then you know that you can achieve literally anything that you set your mind to. With enough training and preparation and planning, you can get there. So that's why maximum effort work is so great for you. I think I'll leave it there. I'll leave links for the playlist here so you can track along with the progress, track my thoughts of the program as I go along. This has been Selwyn from WynnStrength, and remember, a better life through strength.